The Doors burned bright for a short time. From 1966 until Jim Morrison's death in 1971, they took rock and roll into new realms with ominous lyrics and unpredictable performances. Morrison called himself an erotic politician and left behind a tragic story of self-destruction and a legacy of music more popular today than ever. Well, tonight we have a profile of the Doors from the 60s through the 70s and what that all means today. Now, the Doors gave us some film from their archives that hasn't been seen for years, and let me tell you, there's a version of the end here that is really going to blow you away. We also interviewed all three surviving Doors. Ray Manzarek was shooting a video for his new album, Carmina Burana, and Robbie Krieger was working in his own home studio on an album of dance music, and John Densmore has been acting in his own one-man play. It's called Skins. The Doors, their fire is still burning. Really.
After a while, Jim said, hey, you guys, we need some more songs. So everybody go home and write some songs. So I went home and I wrote, the first one I ever wrote was Light My Fire. And it's been all downhill ever since.
Jim was into the concept of Dionysian ecstasy, and Dionysus was a Greek god who was the opposite of Apollo. Apollo is the god of order, of music, of propriety, of the right stuff. You know, all our missiles, all our rockets that go to the moon are all called Apollo. America is a very Apollonian country. And the Dionysian ecstasy was not a mental order, it was a physical order. You would get into the physical and just kind of revel in drunkenness, revel in excitement, revel in just being alive, just the spirit of your own body.
We want the world and we want it!
You guys from MTV, we're trying to make a video here.
That's why I've done Carmina Burana, Karl Orff's wonderful composition, 1935, 37, a cantata with voices and everyone's just singing their heads off. That's what these renegade monks were writing about. They were into Dionysian ecstasy too, getting out, leaving the monastery, getting out into the world and just embracing life, the joys of springtime, the joys of drinking in the tavern, the joys of sex, love. In the Court of Love is one of the sections in Carmina Burana. Sense of power. It was a classical piece of music, but it also had that real throbbing, driving, that rock and roll thing, that Stravinsky-like power, the minor harmonies that were like Russian music, but also like Doors music.
This is one of my new dance songs, and it's called The Oil Slut. And here it comes right now. Well, over the past year or so, I've been into dance music, and I've been recording, and I got all this equipment here, which I'll show you in a minute. And I'm real into synthesizers and all the electronic stuff right now. Having a ball with that stuff in the studio. I'm about halfway into a new album right now. I'm getting to the point right now of trying to sell it to a record company. It's going to be called Robbie's Hobby. When I first heard about the Doors, I was in another group, and my friend John Densmore, who I'd known in school earlier, was telling me about this group that he was in called the Doors. They had this wild, crazy guy, Jim Morrison, who was going to be the lead singer, even though he couldn't sing at the time. But I knew he had the potential because you know, he had just started singing maybe a month ago, and then he was already pretty good, even though he'd never really sang before. The Doors in concert it could be incredible and it could be horrible. You know, it depends on which night you came. So one night we'd be, it usually depended on Jim's mood. If Jim was on that night, it could be the greatest thing you ever saw. It was like a religious experience, because you might, you know, the audience was already in some kind of an altered state, hopefully, when they got there. And then Jim was like the shaman who would take them over the edge and lead them into another realm, you know.
I feel sorry for Seattle. Seattle's a great town, but we played 2 horrible gigs in Seattle. Just for some reason or another, the Doors could not get the magic going in Seattle. And we loved the city and everything. It was just one of those things. In Seattle, when it didn't happen, we just didn't capture the magic. You have to give yourself up to it and kind of sink down into it. You know, there's a conscious level at which you operate, and then there's a higher consciousness at which you're sort of in the stars and in the cosmos and everything. And then there's a lower level of consciousness, a kind of primal level, primeval level that Jim used to like to talk about. And I think that's what the Doors got into. We would leave the conscious mind and sink down into the unconscious and kind of just mill around in there and work around and twist ourselves around and let the snakes run around in our brains and feel that rhythm and that power that comes from all this part of the body, the lower part of the body. Can we say that on MTV? The lower part of the body.
Hey, Mr. Lightman! You gotta turn those lights way down, man.
Miami really turned into a disaster for the Doors. At the time, nobody really thought it was such a big deal. We knew it had been one of those Doors shows in which things didn't go right. As a matter of fact, everything went wrong. Jim was drunk out of his mind at that show. We played badly. The stage was rickety. the stage fell apart. It just collapsed halfway, 2/3 of the way through the show. The stage just started to go, and the whole thing just tipped over to the side. John and Robbie bailed out. I got off the stage. Jim was thrown off the stage. And of course, Jim did that whole thing about, you know, I'm going to show it to you. But he never did it. You know, I don't think he ever did it. I never saw it.
Jim didn't expose himself, and it was a real crazy concert where a policeman came up and took, Jim was wearing a hat, a skull and crossbone. This policeman came up and took it off, threw it in the audience. And Jim took the cop's hat off and threw that in the audience. And at the end of the gig, our manager paid the cop for his hat, and we were all laughing about it. And then we left. And 4 days later, warrants are issued. So it was political.
Miami was the first gig on the 20-city tour, and after the incident happened and the press got a hold of it and all the trouble and the fact that Jim was in fact arrested, every city canceled out. We lost the entire tour.
Jim would do all kinds of weird things on stage, but as far as I could tell, he never whipped it out, nor did he ever simulate oral copulation on the guitar player, which was me.
It's 50% physical. Like, the records are only like half of it, really. There's a whole other element to theater.
It strikes me as a tremendous mystique about what you're involved in here. It's much more than anything on the surface.
Hey, these guys... Pastor Fred L. Steigmeyer, minister at large for the Evangelical and Reformed Church. Minister at large?
Minister at large. Well, just don't report me to my bishop.
An ancient lunatic reigns in the trees of the night.
It's a democracy.
You really did it. I gotta see the guy who did that.
Somebody hit her with a chair, you know? I guess there's no way to determine who did it. No, you know.
It's really funny.
Yeah. It's already coagulating. I think you're gonna be okay.
Are you in the group or anything like that?
No, she was just an innocent bystander. And
That became a victim.
Someone whacked her with a chair.
Oh, I whacked her with a chair.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Are you sure it was a chair?
I don't know what it was.
Before this play, I found it hard to say I was an actor, even though I've studied for several years. But after doing this show, I feel I am an actor. You know, it's, my fellow actors have said I'm good, and I feel the audience responding, and so I feel like I'm an actor, as well as a musician.
Come on, baby, take a trip with us.
It was another one of those love, hate, love, hate, love, 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 hate relationships, hate relationships, hate relationships.
As I say in my play, in the video, I say it was a real love-hate relationship. I loved him for his art and his words, and I hated him for his self-destruction. the early years, we were all buddies. He was like a college guy, and we were like fraternity brothers. As he started to destroy himself, I pulled away from him as a statement, you know, and he knew it. He knew I disapproved of how far he was going. But he was set on it, you know. There's nothing I could do about it.
Like, I don't know, man. That's me, isn't it? Or is it? Or was it? Or is this me? John forgot his name.
From my point of view, when I look at the illustrated history book, I get a kick out of the negative reviews. There's one in particular I just love. We were the house band at the Whiskey, and Pete Johnson, he says, "This band has the worst stage act I've ever seen. The singer sings with his eyes closed, and the guitar player wanders around like he doesn't know where he is, and the keyboard player hunches over, emoting mystery from the keys." I thought, I'd like to see that. That's pretty, you know, so. That was our reaction, too, when it came out in 1967. We thought, wow, he's trying to really dump on us, but it sounds great.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end of our elaborate plans. The end of everything that stands. The end, no safety or surprise. The end, I'll never look into your eyes again.
The night we played the Hollywood Bowl, Jim took acid without telling the rest of the band. So I'm playing along, but it's just something's wrong, something's not quite right. And I didn't know what it was. And I found out later, you know. So, I mean, he was tripping out on the grasshopper. And I was going, wait, you're missing all your cues, buddy.
Ode to a grasshopper. I think I'll open a little shop, a little place where they sell things, and I think I'll call it Grasshopper. I'll have a big green grasshopper out there. You see my grasshopper, Mama? Looking real good. Uh-oh, I blew it at some moth. That's all right, he ain't got long to go. So we'll forgive him. Ensenada, the dog crucifix, the dead seal, ghost of the dead car's son. Stop the car! I'm getting out! I can't take it! Hey, look out, there's somebody coming, and there's nothing you can do about it.
A lot of people have said, hey, why didn't you try to stop him? You know, couldn't you see that he was drinking himself to death? And yeah, we could see it, you know. John knew it, Robbie knew it, I knew it. Jim was going to die. But there was nothing anybody could do to stop him. The road to excess leads to the palace of wisdom. And Jim Morrison was a very excessive person. I think he had to be excessive. He had to take it to extremes. But by being excessive, he lived out on the edge for all of us. All of us that are, let's face it, afraid to go out there. It's scary out there, man. It's scary. You're alone. You're all alone. There are no rules, there's no foundation, no mommy, no daddy, no school, no government, no religion. He was out there all by himself. And he was bringing messages back to us who were afraid to go out there. And it was excessive, you know? He lived an excessive life, but he did it for all of us. I think that kind of talent has to be excessive. That kind of genius has to go out there where we are afraid to go.
You walked on down the hallway, baby.
Father? Yes, son. I want to kill you.
I get for most of it is kind of a heavy, kind of sort of gloomy feeling, you know, like of someone not quite at home, or you know, or not quite relaxed and, you know, aware of a lot of things, but not quite sure about anything. I'd like to do one. Just feeling of being totally at home.
You know, I see a lot of young people around today who are trying to be like Jim, and they get as screwed up as they can on all kinds of drugs or whatever, and I tell them, hey, the Jim that I dug was not like that all the time, you know. That's when he, you know, he did his best stuff in his early days before he really got into alcohol and got completely screwed up, you know. So I think he could have done a little less on the excess side.
And then as time went on, he got more intense. And nothing could prepare me for it. Musically, I was prepared. I played drums since 7th grade, you know. For touring the world and all of that, what can I say? It's like I feel that I've been through a lot. Great highs and some real heavy lows. And I wouldn't change it.
I think these days, especially in the States, you have to be a politician or an assassin or something to really be a superstar.
Love me one time, babe. Could not speak. Love me one time, baby. Hear my sky weep. But love me few times, girl. Bless me. I'll do the weep. Love me few times. I'm gonna play.
Maybe 2 years ago, when the quote-unquote Doors revival started, And due to a couple of things, certainly due to Danny Sugerman's book, along with Jerry Hopkins, No One Here Gets Out Alive. Very exciting story. Francis Coppola put the end in Apocalypse Now at the beginning of the movie. And we've decided to finally release a greatest hits package, as they call it in the business.
I think if Jim came along today and the Doors started today, I think we'd be giant, you know, because, you know, a lot of kids, when they hear Doors stuff now, they say, oh, I like that group, I'm going to go out and buy it, you know. And they don't even know that it's an old group. And they'll just go to the record store and buy it, figuring it's this, a new group.
Thousands of kids, literally hundreds of kids, have written saying, thanks for writing that. They really have a true passion for the Doors. This guy, the psychotherapist, was the director of an adolescent alcohol detox unit, detox and therapy unit. Basically, that is a mental hospital for teenagers with a booze or dope problem. And he worked there. And I met him after this lecture. He came up to me. He said, you're Danny Sugerman. You wrote that book on Jim Morrison. I said, well, I had a little help in doing it, but yeah, I'm that guy. And he says, I hope you know what you started, man. I hope you know. So what are you talking about, what I started? And apparently what was happening in this adolescent unit was these kids had read the book, and these kids on group therapy night or family therapy night would say to their mothers and fathers, I don't know why you're criticizing me. I'm the reason you're here. If it weren't for me, your life would be boring. I don't tell you what to do with your life. What are you telling me what to do with, you know? And these kids would throw out these lines of Morrison's. And he just said to me, I hope you're happy. That book has been the single most disruptive influence that has ever been on that one. And we've had some disruptive influences. So it's worse than any drug that's been smuggled in. He said, I hope you're happy. He said, that guy was sick, and you made him out to be a hero. He said, I just think it's sick. I was really knocked down. It really hurt. Because Morrison, to me, was such a positive voice. I mean, his trip wasn't about death. No. Morrison's trip was about life. I mean, Break On Through to the Other Side wasn't this side life, that side death. It was this side ignorance. The other side was bliss, was tranquility, was consciousness. This side was ignorance. This side was awareness. Break on through to the awareness side. And the way you did that was you came to terms with your fears. You came to terms with your limitations.
Don't let me die in an automobile. I want to lie in an open field. I want the snake to suck my skin. Want the worms to be my friends. Want the birds to eat my eyes as here I lie. The clouds lie by.
For man has closed himself up till he sees all things through narrow chinks of his cavern. But if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. The Doors.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. to set you